2 citizens died and more than 7 others were wounded when terrorists fired mortar shells on popular quarters and the Opera House in Damascus. The meeting of National Dialogue continues its work reaffirming the peaceful solution of the crisis in Syria. Russia insists on including Russian and Chinese experts to the team investigating the use of chemical weapons by terrorists in Syria. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am Yarado Krikorian from the News Center in Damascus. For the second day running, and with the participation of a number of parties, activities and national figures, the work of the Syrian National Dialogue continued in the Hotel of Damaros in Damascus. The meeting discussed the political program to solve the crisis in Syria according to the plan of the government, in addition to the constitution, national convention and institutions assigned to carry out the concordance according to the timetable and the laws of elections, information and political parties. Russia insisted on the participation of chemical experts from Russia and China with the rest of the permanent members of the UN Security Council in the international team investigating the crime of the terrorists who used chemical weapons in Syria. The Russian attitude was expressed by the Deputy Foreign Minister Gennady Gatilov, who asserted that a balanced team of chemical experts could give objectivity to the investigation of this crime of March 19, when terrorists fired a rocket carrying chemical materials on Khan al-Assal in Aleppo. The Foreign Ministry said that Syria asked the UN Secretary General to form a specialized, independent and neutral technical mission to investigate this crime. The Russian Foreign Minister asserted that the use of chemical weapons by the Syrian opposition constituted a very dangerous precedent in the context of the crisis in Syria. In Hama, the security forces defused a booby-trapped car that was moving from the square of Al-Ba'ath quarter to the square of Kazo in the city. The car carried 13 explosive devices weighing more than 1 ton of benzene and moving by remote control with a dummy in place of the driver. Also in Hama, in collaboration with the people, the security forces to the north of the village of Al-San in the Hama countryside, our security forces confronted a terrorist group in a car full of weapons and military equipment. All those in the car were killed when the car was burned. The security forces captured mortar shells, ammunition and advanced contact equipment in the car. In the Idlib countryside, the Syrian Arab Army unit foiled a terrorist attempt to detonate 5 explosive devices weighing nearly 50 kilograms each between the village of Urmel-Joz and Kfr Shalaya. Another Syrian Arab Army unit destroyed a number of terrorist hideouts in several villages and the tools of their crimes, which they used in their attacks on citizens and property in the area. In the Latakia countryside, the Syrian Arab Army unit destroyed terrorist groups and their hideouts, killing and wounding many of them. The army also destroyed 2 stores of weapons and ammunition in the village of Bela. The army destroyed in the village of Burj al-Ramalia a base of rockets that the terrorists used in their attacks on the people. The army killed several terrorists, including some snipers of non-Syrian nationalities. A mortar shell was exploded by terrorists in a private car, killing the driver and causing material damage at the stop of Al-Azbakiyeh. Another shell fell near the Umayyad school in the Baghdad street, causing material damage. Terrorists fired several shells near the building of the General Broadcasting and TV station, causing material damage in vehicles and a fire that was immediately put under control. One citizen was killed and 7 others were wounded when mortar shells fired by terrorists fell around the Opera House in Damascus. The wounded victims included a photographer and his assistants from the Syrian news channel who came to photograph the traces of this terrorist act. The Opera House suffered material damage. Reports by the Yemeni independent newspaper The Street showed that the president of Yemen received a secret intelligence report says that more than 5,000 young Yemeni fighters were recruited to fight in Syria. The newspaper highlighted the role of the religious leaders from Islah religious gathering in recruiting those young people from 4 months ago from many tribes on the grounds that Qatar wants to recruit Yemenis as guards for attractive salaries, prompting many Yemenis to agree to travel to Qatar. The irony is that they were recruited in Qatar, but they were transported to Turkey, then smuggled to Syria in order to fight with the terrorists there. The newspaper also added that after revealing the Qatari plans of turning the Yemenis into terrorists under the name of jihadists, some of those Yemenis escaped from Syria into Lebanon, but they were arrested by the Lebanese security, whereas a number of them were capable of going back to Yemen after going across Daraa to Jordan. In the shadow of the collusion of Erdogan's government with Israel following the last bargain between them and in a new violation of international laws and conventions, the Israeli forces of occupation detained the liberated prisoner Bashar al-Maqat, who spent 25 years in Israeli jails. They stormed his house in the occupied town of Majd al-Shams. His brother, Sudq al-Maqat, said that Israeli soldiers violated the international conventions and tried to drag his brother from his house, but they did not find him there, so they detained his brother Bashar. Moreover, the Israeli forces of occupation extended the detention of 6 young men from the occupied Golan yesterday and at dawn today till March 26, under the pretext that they refused to hold the Israeli football matches on the land of the Golan. Back to our local news, and marking the World Day to combat tuberculosis, Dr. Saad al-Naif visited the specialized center for tuberculosis treatment in Damascus.
Syria has combated tuberculosis by raising awareness and by the suitable treatment so that the cases of this disease were decreased to the lowest level. Minister of Health Dr. Saad al-Naif visited the specialized center for tuberculosis treatment in Damascus.
Syria is among the first countries in the Middle East which succeeded in the treatment of tuberculosis, and we hope to fully eliminate this disease soon. Treatment is taking place in the specialized centers, which have reached 1,600 centers deployed in the different parts of the country.
Minister al-Naif toured the center and listened to the patients about their health conditions and the medical services offered for free at the center. An ounce of prevention is better than a pound of treatment. This is the belief of the Syrian people, pushing them to care a lot for building healthy bodies that make them able to protect their country.
With this to end our news for today. Thank you for watching. For more details about Syria and the region and to view this bulletin again, you can always visit our website in English, syriaonline.sy. Now to latest business and market news with Nariman Qassam after a short break.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. The governor of the Central Bank of Syria, Adib Mayale, confirmed that the severe war against Syria is behind the decline of the Syrian pound exchange rate against the US dollar. In addition to the psychological factor that drives citizens to fear and exchange their savings from Syrian pounds to dollars. In an interview with the Syrian TV, Mayale said that the Syrian pound has achieved great steadfastness, where many people bet on its falling within months, and this didn't happen, adding that the rise of exchange rates during last week came as a result of excessive speculation. The assistant manager of Tartus port emphasized that the total of the shipping traffic approached 1,504,000 tons since the beginning of the current year, as the number of ships arriving and departing was about 202 ships and approximately 5,150 containers, while the exported quantities of various materials were about 194,000 tons, and the imported materials reached 1,310,000 tons. The General Tax Committee is taking the circumstances of the property owners affected by the terrorist acts into account, and it is trying to alleviate their financial burdens. The financial directorates in all governorates noted the possibility of making some tax cuts for those affected, as well as exempting the owners from filing tax reports according to specific conditions and in accordance with the Legislative Decree number 53 of 2006. The Cabinet approved on the proposal of the Ministry of Agriculture to implement the Cotton Lands Plan, which covered about 187,000 hectares. The plan called the Ministry of Agriculture and the concerned bodies to provide the needs for cultivating the concerned areas. The Minister of Agriculture also showed that it is coordinating with other ministries to provide all the needs of seeds, fertilizers and diesel to plant the cotton crops. On the other hand, marketing the products will be supported either by setting the prices of importing the crops or through the Agricultural Production Supporting Fund. The new Chinese finance minister announced that it is not yet clear whether the Eurozone will be able to solve its debt problems over the next 10 years. He also noted that the escalation of the crisis could complicate the efforts being made to reduce the levels of China's financial deficit. The Brent crude oil rose over $108 per barrel after the ministers of the Eurozone approved on the plan of the European Union and the International Monetary Fund to reconstruct the Cypriot banking sector, which may refresh the Eurozone's finance and increase the oil demands. European shares climbed, rebounding from a weekly loss, as an overnight rescue deal between the finance ministers of both Cyprus and Eurozone lowered the nation's risk of the default and the exit from the currency union. The US index futures and the Asian shares also rose, as the Nikkei index was 1.4 up after dropping sharply at the end of the last week. In the local market, the 21-carat gold fell 50 Syrian pounds per gram, reaching 4,750 Syrian pounds per gram, as the Jewelers Assembly set the price of the Rashadi golden coin at 34,700 Syrian pounds and the English coin at 38,800 Syrian pounds per gram. The euro erased its advance against the US dollar amid concerns that a deal to bail out Cyprus may not be enough to eliminate the threat of a default. Whereas the Japanese currency weakened against all of its 16 major peers before the central bank governor speaks to the lawmakers tomorrow. Ladies and gentlemen, this was our economic news for today. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.